I need everyone to trust and believe that this is not the look that I wanted to present for this video, okay? I wanted it to be a little bit more Glindified. I wanted to wear a bit more of a pink dress, but it was hot. I wanted to have my hair down so I could do a little like Glinda. Again, too hot. I was sweating too much. It was disgusting. It looked gross. The bangs aren't banging the way that I want it to, but please bear with me. If you just ignore what I look like and maybe just listen to the sound of my voice. I mentioned in a previous video that one of the books that I wanted to read in 2025 was Gregory Maguire's Wicked. The decision to read that book was very much influenced by the 2024 movie with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Like, I'm not too big to say that I was influenced by that social media marketing, okay? I went to that movie and I enjoyed myself. Despite having not seen the musical at all, I was still able to enjoy the movie itself, or at least, like, part one of the movie, which is just supposed to be act one of the musical, whatever, who cares? And I had seen enough YouTube videos going over the lore of Wicked, of the Wicked musical in the lead up to the movie itself. So I knew that the book that it was based on was not the same as the musical at all. It was supposed to be something that was like dark, twisted. Like, people were just describing it as dark, but I didn't fully grasp what they had meant by that. I had watched YouTube videos by Behind the Magic that discussed the history of the book itself and how it was received at the time, and how that reception had then led to the rights to the book to be like adapted into a movie or like a musical or anything like that. Like, that started the auctioning process for the rights to the story in the book. So I was still going into this with the preconception that it might be a dark book, but it's also going to be a very good book, because why else would this book have this kind of hype around it at the time where, oh my god, they're fighting, the girls are fighting for the rights to this story to adapt it. When I actually read the book itself, I was very surprised and shocked. To say the least. After having read this book, I'm not quite sure how it was so well received. And after having seen the movie and listening to songs from the musical and hearing about the plot of the musical, I'm not quite sure how people saw the rough that is the book and found the diamond that is the musical. I am so incredibly lucky that my friends and I decided to read this book as part of like a book club together, because otherwise I would not have finished this book. I would have DNF'd it within like the first third of the book because it is not great. It's not it I'm sorry. I did not think that this was a great book. And so I wanted to yap about it, because if I spent so many hours of my life reading this book, I am going to make a video and complain about it, so that way it's out of my system, because there's only so much that I can complain to my friends who also read the book, because they get it. Like, my friends get it. The girlies that get it. But I would love to know other people's opinions. This video will contain spoilers of the story itself. If you loved the musical and you loved the movie and you wanted to get a little bit of insight into the source material and you wanted to read this book, may I suggest that you don't? If you want to maintain like an air of childlike wonder in your life, if you want to continue holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity, then I would recommend not reading this book, because it will shatter that perception real damn quick, okay? Okay. If you liked this book, please feel free to tell me why you liked it, and please politely tell me how I'm wrong. If there's parts of it that I just missed, if I'm, too stupid to get it, please explain it to me, because I at this point do not see it unless you are able to give me like a really good argument for this book. If you are able to show me gung ho, you need to retry this book and have this sort of perspective on the situation. Like, unless you are able to do that for me, I do not think that I will give this book another try. But I'm open. I'm open. I'm open. Here if you need. Open. Let us start with a story recap based on what I remember. This is just going to be a story recap of Wicked. Remember, this is book one in a series of 4 books. So there's supposed to be more story after this, but this is book one, okay? We meet Melina and Frex, who are Elphaba's parents. Frex is a unionist guy. He's basically like a religious pastor kind of thing. And Melina comes from a noble family, fairly certain that she just like married Frex to piss off her family, because she's like essentially marrying down in social standing, if that makes sense. I don't know. That doesn't really happen these days. I can't relate. Melina ends up like cheating on Frex with someone, and she falls pregnant and gives birth, and the person that she gives birth to is Elphaba. Whoa! Elphaba is born, and Melina like struggles connecting with her because Elphaba is green, and Melina seems to think that because I cheated and because I was an adulterous little slut, my child being green is my fault. It is my sin. She is a sign of my sin. And also Frex like thinks the same thing. He like didn't cheat on Melina, but he's like, I'm a pastor and I have been cursed with this green baby. She must be a sign of my sin, and I must have sinned somehow. I need to be even more religious, even more gung ho, and whatever. Because Melina is struggling so hard with connecting with Elphaba, her noble family send over Melina's nanny, who took care of Melina as a child and saw Melina grow up. So Nanny has come to stay with them, with Frex and Melina, to basically help raise Elphaba. Low key, I think Nanny is my favorite character. Nanny's like, I don't give a fuck if this baby is green. This baby needs to be cared for. This baby should go play with other kids in Munchkin Land because it'll be good for her socializing. Oh, sure, the baby is biting at the moment, but once the baby starts playing with other kids and gets bitten by another kid, little Elphaba isn't gonna know not to bite people. Come on, people, just you have to teach her to not bite. While Elphaba is still a baby, Frex is away on like a missionary type trip, and Melina, Nanny, and Elphaba are home alone. Home alone makes it sound scary, but they end up having a like foreign traveler from Quadling country, whatever. He comes through and he's like, "Oh, please let me stay here." And Melina's like, I'm a bored little housewife. My husband's not home, so they start an affair. Turtleheart is like a glass blower by trade, and he ends up like staying there for a while. Frex comes back, and they like become like friends. Frex is also apparently falling in love with Turtleheart, but whatever. Because Turtleheart is a glass blower, he makes like a looking glass, i.e., a telescope. Call it a fucking telescope. I don't know. I think they're supposed to be seeing visions through the telescope, like it's magic, a cursed, or something like that. Time jump! Elphaba is now at Shiz. Elphaba has to become roomies with a girl named Galinda. Girls at the university are supposed to have chaperones, and they call the chaperones Amas. I don't know why they call them Amas. AMA. It'll be like AMA name, like Amma April. I don't know what it means. Don't ask me. It's not it's not explained. But Galinda is basically saying like, I'm supposed to have like a private room with me and my Amma, but oh no, my Amma like stepped on a rusty nail, so she's like out of commission, she's injured. She'll be coming later. She'll definitely be coming later, and then she'll stay with me then. But for the time being, I can live alone and I can sleep in my room alone. And Madame Marble is like, no, girls cannot be left alone. I need you to stay with someone, and that someone is going to be Elphaba. So Elphaba ends up staying with her, whatever. And then Amma Clutch turns out wasn't injured at all. Her foot must have gotten healed really quickly. So Amma Clutch does stay with them in their room. Whilst we are at Shiz, we meet the cast of characters. We meet the normal Bok and Fiero, Fanny, Shen. There's like another girl that Glinda is friends with. She doesn't matter. There's like these boys that me and Bach is friends with, Averick, Tibbet, and Croak. Let's just say that the characters who made the transition into the musical are the only ones that matter. Whilst she's at Shiz, Elphaba is a nerd and she reads a lot. She befriends a goat with a capital G, Dr. Dillamond, who is an animal with a capital A, and them being an animal with a capital A just means that they are like a sentient animal. Dr. Dillamond is discussing how in the city of Oz, animals with a capital A are no longer allowed to like work jobs. He himself is no longer like going to be allowed to work at the university. And so Elphaba's like, what? What? They're taking away animal capital A rights? That's not good. So she ends up like trying to do this research with Dr. Dillamond, who was a goat with a capital G, on animals with a capital A. They're doing research on, I guess, like the history and the science and biology of animals with a capital A so that they can look into like the science and the ethics, I guess, of treating animals with a capital A differently and stuff like that. And then shockingly, Dr. Dillamond is killed one night, okay? So he's killed one night by what they call a TikTok named Chrometic, who is owned slash controlled by Madame Marble. More on that later. The official story is that Dr. Dillamond slipped. He broke the microscope lens and then ended up like slitting his throat. Emma Clutch apparently witnessed this, so she saw this TikTok grammatic stab Dr. Dillerman or like slit his throat or something like that. And Madame Marble is like, no, you didn't see that. You saw that the lens broke and he slit his throat that way, actually. And then with Emma Clutch, either she loses her mind by the fact that she witnessed like a brutal murder, or she is like magicked into losing her mind by Madame Marble, and she ends up being like incapacitated and like needing to stay in the hospital because she's going loopy. She's going loopy goopy. And then Glinda is like feeling really guilty about it because she's like, oh my god, I made up a story about Emma Clutch needing to be hospitalized when I got to university, and now she's actually hospitalized, and it must be my fault because I wished it. I wished that it would happen, and now it's happening. Oh no! Emma Clutch ends up dying, real unceremoniously, I guess. And Madame Marble is like, okay, girls, again, without your Emma, you guys gotta go to the fucking poor girl dormitory. You guys got to stay in the 16 girls a room dormitory. Friggin' Elphaba comes in clutch and she's like, actually, I can find a way to get a chaperone. My younger sister, who's poor little Nessa Rosebud, who's disabled and she's so inept. She needs to have a carer with her all times. So why don't we bring Nessa Rose and Nanny over to Shiz so that they can stay with us, so that Glinda and I can stay in our like little private room and not go to the poor person dormitory. And so that is the arrangement. Madame Marble has like a meeting with the girls and wants them to do her bidding, I think. And by the girls, I mean Glinda, Elphaba, and Nessa Rose once she has gotten to Shiz. Madame Marble is like, yo, you three could be the most powerful, most influential girls in history. I think you girls could make history. I think you three girls could bring the house down. And Elphaba is like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do your bidding. I think that you have something to do with all the animals disappearing. During this meeting, Elphaba is pulling a Zac de la Rocha, and she's saying, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. So after this meeting, Elphaba goes back to Glinda and she's like, girl, we gotta get the fuck out of here. Did you see what Madame Marble is saying? She's in on it. She's fucking crazy. We gotta get to the city of Oz, okay? We've gotta tell the wizard. He'll know what to do. They sneak out, they travel to the city of Oz, and they end up having a meeting with the Wizard of Oz. And when they meet the Wizard of Oz, it's basically just like a skeleton, an animated skeleton with like light bulb eyeballs. In my mind, it looked really stupid, and the skeleton is just there like nah 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 nah. Elphaba is like, listen, Mr. Wizard, Mr. Skeleton Wizard, I need your help because all of the animals are disappearing out of the city. And the wizard's like, so, like, I give a fuck. I can't help you. After the meeting, like, Glinda's like, well, we tried. Guess we gotta go back home. And Elphaba's like, hey, Glinda, you can get on that bus back home, but I'm staying here in the city. And Glinda's like, what? No, no, don't. And Glinda's like choo-chooing away. And she's like, what? No. Oh no. 5-year jump, okay? We're jumping another 5 years. There's going to be a lot of time jumps. I hate it. I hated it. So, 5-year jump, we are following Fiyero. Fiyero is at the city of Oz, and he's in the town square called like the St. Galinda Square. And he's at a church at that St. Galinda Square, and he's trying to like pray to a figure of Saint Galinda. Yes, the very same Galinda. I would have loved to know how she became a saint, but we're never told. When he's like trying to pray to this Saint Galinda, he sees someone and he's like, that person who just tried to light a candle, their hand is green. I know a girl with green hands. I knew her from university. And he's like, hey, I know you. And she's like, no, I don't think you do. He's like, no, I do. I definitely know you. I know you from university. And she's like, okay, well, I definitely don't know you and you don't know me, but maybe if you know me, I can meet you at the front and we can have a chat. We can have like a little conversation, but like, let me pray first. And he's like, okay, cool. And he's like, I think that she's gonna try and sneak away from me. Why is she trying to avoid me? So Elphaba tries to like avoid him by sneaking out of the church through like a back entrance, but lo and behold, he's at that back entrance because he's like, I'm onto you. Why are you trying to avoid me? I just want to catch up. Like, after he follows her home, he's like, bro, I fucking know you. You're Elphaba. I know you from university. I'm Fiero, remember? These are some stories about people who we went to university with. You remember them? You are the person who I think you are. And she's like, okay, fine. I'm Elphaba, but I'm like trying to keep it covert. I'm trying to keep it like, shh. Sophia's like trying to be like, hello, what have you been up to? Missed you, girl. Where you been, you crazy thing? What are you doing up in the city? And she's like, if I tell you what I'm doing in the city, I'll literally have to kill you. Shh. Like, Alphaba's doing like guerrilla warfare type shit. She's doing like cute winter boots, like, shh. She's doing boots, 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 moving up and down again. Okay? That's what Alphaba is doing in the city. And she's like, I can't tell you because it might get you killed, or worse, you might get me killed. And he's like, okay, well, that's really interesting about your life. How about I tell you about my life? I live up in the mountains with my child bride. My child bride has finally reached breeding age, so we've had 3 kids. I don't like spending all my times up in the mountains because half of the year it's just snowed in for winter, and the other time my wife's a bitch, so I just stay down in the city doing freaking city ceremonial stuff and doing admin. I send her letters every now and then, but whatever, my wife is away. I do feel like kissing though. My wife isn't here. Alphaba's in front of me. Okay. Fiera and Alphabet end up having an affair. It's awful. They're just cheating. Come on, man. They have an affair. And then time jump. Okay, we're like 5 or 6 years in the future again. We wake up. Alphabet is leaving a Monterey. No idea what a Monterey is. I wasn't able to find out what the fuck that is. It's basically, from what I can understand, a monastery. Okay, just call it a fucking monastery then. Okay, Alphabet is leaving a monastery after staying there for 5 years. And when she's leaving, the people at the monastery are like, okay, yeah, you can go, but you also need to take this 5-year-old fat little boy with you. And Elphaba's like, okay, I don't know this fat little boy, but fine, I'll take him with me, I guess. And the boy's like, hi, lady, my name's Lear. I'm just following you along now. Elphaba's like, I don't know this 5-year-old boy, but whatever. Come along, you fat little 5-year-old boy. We're going up the mountains to tell my ex lover's wife that I might be the reason why he died. Whoops. So they go on this little treacherous journey with like a bunch of different people. I don't know. It's supposed to be like a caravan that's like traveling up the mountains. Finally makes it up the mountain after this whole like treacherous journey. She ends up meeting Fiore's widow, actually, I guess. Her name is Sarima, and she's there with her 6 sisters who are unmarried up there in the castle as well, and her and Fiero's children, the 3 kids. So there's 2 boys and 1 girl, and the girl is the youngest. When Elphaba and the fat little boy get there to like the castle, it's like in the middle of winter, and Elphaba's like, listen, Sarima, I gotta tell you something about your husband. And Sarima's like, I'm gonna stop you right there, actually, because I am only just getting over my grief. It's taken me ages to be able to get the strength to get out of bed. And so whatever you have to say to me, I don't care if it's going to absolve you of your guilt, okay? You can sit there with that guilt because I'm finally feeling a little bit better. So hold on to that nugget of information, bitch, because I don't want to fucking hear it. And Alphaba's like, oh, but please, I need to get it off my chest. I could have been. And she's like, I don't care what you could have been. If you're going to stay here in my castle, because it's my castle now because my husband is dead, if you're going to stay here in my castle in the middle of winter, you cannot get back down that mountain. It is too cold, okay? It's too treacherous. We're going to live in pleasant times, okay? You're not going to tell me about my fucking husband. You're just going to shut up and you're going to be given like a little private tower of the castle. Don't tell me about my husband. I don't want to fucking know. And Elphaba's like, okay, I won't say anything about your husband then. Whilst they're living up in this mountain, they get a guest. Who's the guest? It's Nanny. Nanny is like much older now, and Nanny is like, Elphaba, girl, where have you been? It's taken me forever to track you down. I need to tell you the tea. Your sister's freaking crazy. Your dad's losing his freaking marbles. While they are like living in this castle, Fiera and Serena's kids, they are little fucking shits, okay? One of the kids, I think it was like the middle child, it was one of the boys, he ends up taking the fat little 5-year-old, Leah, while they are playing a game of hide and seek. He tells Leah to hide down in the fish well. If you're not quite sure what a fish well is, the best way that I can think of it is if you had like a manhole cover in your basement, and when you lifted that manhole cover, it was like an underground lake kind of thing. And they use this underground lake to fish for fish and have like a food source of like a meat protein kind of thing throughout winter. This little shit middle child tells little fat boy Leah, you should get in this bucket while we're playing hide and seek. I'll lower you down into the fish well and you just stay in that bucket, and then no one's gonna know you're gonna win hide and seek. And Leah's like, oh, I'm kind of scared. He's like, don't be a fucking pussy. Don't be a baby, you 5-year-old. Don't be a pussy. So Leah gets in there, and then this little shit of a child like puts the fucking manhole cover back on, and then they're like, oh, hey guys, it's lunchtime. And the kid is like, oh, cool, it's lunch. I'm gonna go upstairs and eat lunch. And then while the whole family is eating lunch, they're like, oh, has anyone seen little fat boy Leah? And the kid's like, no, I haven't. And then it comes to dinner time. They're like, hey, has anyone seen Leah? He's like, no, haven't seen him. Then it comes to breakfast time. And they're like, hey, has anyone seen Leah? He's like, no, I haven't. But hey, why is one of Elphaba's monkeys? Oh, by the way, she has monkeys. She has monkeys up at the up at the castle. Why is the monkey like chattering and like going crazy at the freaking fish well? Why is it going crazy at the fish well? They lift this manhole cover and they discover that because it's coming to like the late winter, there's just been a whole bunch of snow that's been melting. So the underground lake itself is like kind of flooded, basically. And so this poor little boy has just drowned there and been left there for like 18 hours or something like that. He's just been left in the fucking basement in this bucket. And everyone's trying to like resuscitate him and being like, oh my God, is he okay? But the little middle child is like, that's freaking cool. He looks dead. He looks awesome. Alpha was like, what the fuck? Nanny like ends up getting the water out of the boy's lungs, and she like resuscitates him and everything, and she's like, oh my God, thank God he's alive, but he's gonna need to rest. Someone show me where his room is so we can put him to bed. And she's like looking at Elphaba being like, where's his room? And Elphaba's like, me, I don't fucking know. Elphaba looks at the kids, and the kids are like, what, we don't fucking know where he sleeps. The kids look at their mum Sarima, and she's like, what the fuck? And then Nanny is like looking at all of them being like, what the hell do you mean that none of you know where little fat boy 5-year-old Leo sleeps? Okay, fine, whatever. I'll just take him to my bed and he can sleep in my bed. You guys need to figure it out. Why has this boy been sleeping in the barn? He's a boy. He's sleeping in the barn? Figure it out, okay? That's what Nanny is like. And then eventually Nanny is like, Alpha, be so fucking for real with me. What is your relationship to that boy? And Alpha was like, I don't know. They just like gave him to me when I left the monastery. And Nanny's like, no, no, no. Is that boy your son? She's like, what? No. Is there a possibility that that boy could be your son? Well, I was having unprotected sex with someone at the time. No, that cannot be my son. If that little boy is not your son, why did they give him to you at the monastery? Well, when I got to the monastery, I was like asleep for a whole year. So like I don't know if I gave birth during that time, and like I don't know if I would have nursed a child during that time. But like when I came out of my stupor after a year, they like thrust this baby upon me. And he's just been like following me around. So like I don't actually know. I can't tell if I've had a baby. They are still up at the castle. A bunch of like an army from the city of Oz ends up like taking up barracks. Basically, the army comes up to the castle and they're like, we need to make a stronghold, so this castle needs to actually be ours. And Alphaba's like, no, I know my rights, Second Amendment rights or whatever. You can't freaking take up arms here, all right? You can't stay here. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll stay on the side of the mountain. Whilst the army is up at the castle, Elphaba goes and visits her dad and Nessa Rose down in Munchkin Land, and Nessa Rose has been upgraded to being like an eminent throp, so she's like gone to like nobility. Nessa is like kind of going crazy. She's like a religious fanatic, even more religious than Frex was, and she's, I don't know, being weird about it and everything like that. She goes crazy with power. I don't think I touched on it too much about like how Nessa Rose is actually disabled, but in the book, she is supposed to have been born without arms. It's not really clear on whether or not it is just like a full shoulder and then nothing. When I was reading it, I was kind of imagining more so like there would still be something, like maybe a little nub of like an undeveloped arm, or like maybe just a hand on the side of her torso or something like that, like something that could have been a hand on the side of her torso. But I think maybe in the book it's just supposed to be like a straight line, straight line, straight line, cut, nothing grew kind of thing. So because she doesn't have arms, she's bad at balancing and stuff like that. I don't know if that's actually true. Nessa Rose's inclusion and how people talk about her feels offensive, but basically with these enchanted shoes, the enchanted glass slippers, she's able to sort of walk around by herself and maintain her own balance and be more independent, which I guess is okay. But wow, this disabled girl has independence and now she goes crazy. And then basically, like, skip forward a little bit. The events of the 1939 movie occur with Judy Garland, where the house falls on top of Nessa Rose. Elphaba is basically just trying to be like, give me back my fucking shoes. Towards the ending as well, Elphaba and Glinda talk to each other quite amicably. So it kind of contradicts what we are shown in the, quite iconic scene from 1939, where these witches are like showing up in Munchkin Land and she's like, and Glinda's like, I'm just Glinda. Elphaba is supposed to be like antagonizing, fucking bitch, you fucking bitch, I fucking hate good witches, rah! But in the book, she's like, well, in this book at least, she's like, oh, Linda, thank you for giving me condolences about my dead sister. Dorothy ends up like going back to the castle. Then Dorothy ends up accidentally melting her because she's allergic to water, guys. Dorothy goes back to the wizard and gives the wizard like this little green bottle that she found with Elphaba's possessions, and she's like, oh, I found this green bottle as well, I killed the witch and I found this green bottle. And the wizard like looks at this green bottle and is like, I remember this green bottle. I used to give this to a lady named Melina back in Munchkin Land. I used to drug her with it and then I better flee now. I gotta get out of here. So the Wizard of Oz is supposed to be Elphaba's dad. The fuck? Okay, that's it for like my story recap. Now, getting into the things that I didn't like about this book. One thing that I do want to note is that I think I'm lucky that I read this as a digital version of the book. It felt as if like on every other page there was a word that I didn't understand and I needed to have it like translated. No, defined for me. And look, me, myself and I know that I am not the most well-educated person. I'm not the most well-read person. I haven't read like a whole bunch of Victorian literature, classic literature. I haven't read fucking Beowulf. I haven't read shit from like Middle English times and stuff like that. So there are definitely going to be words that I'm just not aware of. Like when I needed to define like another fucking word on the page, it just kind of felt like maybe you should just say talk.
I think it's converse.
Huh?
Just say talk. I'm not going to talk to you.
When I was selecting words to like define through the Kindle, any like word definitions that it gives you like the century origin, the I guess country of origin or region of origin, like the etymology of the word itself. And so there would be varied sort of centuries of like, oh, it's a 14th century word, oh, it's an 18th century word, has origins in German, it has origins from France, it has origins from Middle English. I don't know. Like there were different regions and different eras that all of these different words were belonging to. And so I could understand and I could give the language being used a pass if the language itself all had roots from a specific region or a specific era. Because I feel like when you are using like certain words or certain dialogue, that can be seen as a piece of world building, a way of set dressing, a way to show the reader, the viewer, anything like that, the time period that this is supposed to be set in. Like, for example, if you were to watch something like Game of Thrones, if you watch the pilot episode and they were talking to each other like, yo, what the fuck, bro? My name's Ned Stark. Fucking winter's coming. Like, it doesn't make sense. He needs to talk like flowery, formal, use like medieval type words. And even if those words weren't actually used in medieval times, it's what our common perception of those sort of times would be. Like, obviously, Game of Thrones isn't set in the actual past because we didn't have dragons and shit like that. It's like a commonality. Yes, it is a fictional fantasy world, but the fictional fantasy world is kind of similar to our medieval times or some shit like that. So the way that the characters are talking to each other is going to be representative and using words and language that is representative of that time or what they know that the audience would perceive as representative of that time. Whereas with Wicked, when I was reading it, when I am seeing that a word had a fucking French origin, or that this word was used in the 19th century, but then also in the same sentence, they're using a word that had origins from the 16th century. It's hard for me to place where that time period of the world is supposed to be, or is, supposed to be set in. I don't know what is worse, I guess, like whether or not these words have been chosen as a means to confuse me, confuse the reader, or worse, that Gregory Maguire doesn't care. He just wanted the words that he used to sound smart. He wanted maybe like a little bit of difficulty. He didn't think about what the words he was choosing would fucking imply. And I think that that might be worse. I don't know. I feel like the language was used carelessly in a way then. Another thing that I didn't like is that stuff is unexplained. Again, this is going to be something that I'm happy to concede if I just didn't pay attention enough. But I felt like there was not enough of a description or an explanation of what TikTok things are. The myth of the time dragon, the the ticking tock of the time dragon, is that supposed to be a TikTok machine? Grammatic as well. I'm assuming that they're supposed to be robots. Yeah, I'm assuming that there's supposed to be mechanical robots. Anything that's referred to as TikToky is supposed to be mechanical. But something like grammatic, is he supposed to be like a wind up mechanical, or is he supposed to be an autonomous robot type mechanical? Does Madame Marble own him? Like, is a TikTok sentient? Is grammatic sentient? It doesn't go into any sort of detail there, and I think that if you are wanting to create a world like this, I think it would be good to go into like a little bit further detail about what something like that is. Describe it to me. Please describe it to me. A lot of the time there was just yapping. People would yap and yap and yap, and then it would just sort of rush to sort of like some action at the end of the page, or something that would be very exciting for us to like know a little bit more about. It would just sort of skip right past it, or it would just mention it in passing and keep going. For example, when I recapped earlier in the story about how Leah had been sort of drowned in that fish pond, after he's been resuscitated and everything like that, Elphaba's like, I'm pretty suspicious of that middle child who seemed really excited when everyone else was really freaked out. But Elphaba didn't have to worry about him too long because a freaking rock fell on his head. Oh no, an icicle fell on his head. And then the next page is like, oh, he had like a little gravestone out in the yard. You just skim past the fact that one of Sarima's kids is dead. She's a widow, and now her kid is dead, and we just gleam right past it. What do you mean? As an example, when Melina has given birth to Elphaba, this is an example of the fucking yapping that goes on during the birth. Look what we get for our troubles, said the maiden. A little green pat of butter. Why don't we kill it? You know what people will say. I think it's rotten, said the fishwife, and checked for the root of a tail, and counted fingers and toes. It smells like dung. That is dung you're smelling, you idiot. You're squatting in a cow patty pie. It's sick, it's feeble, that's why the colour. Lose it in the puddle, drown the thing. She'll never know. She'll be out of it for hours in her ladylike faints. They giggled. They cradled the infant in the crook of their arm, passing it around to test it for the weight and balance. To kill it was the kindest course of action. The question was how. Then the child yawned, and the fishwife absent-mindedly gave it a finger to nurse on, and the child bit the finger off at the second knuckle. It almost choked on the gush of blood. The digit dropped out of its mouth into the mud like a bobbin. The women catapulted into action. You were yapping so much before. You don't tell me, oh my god, these women fucking screamed. These women looked at her finger in shock and despair. Like, you just go right on to the next fucking thing. I don't love it. Don't love it. There's this fun little passage from when Elphaba is a toddler. Elphaba, on all fours, advanced on the uneven planks of the flooring. She bared her teeth, as if she knew what a dragon was, as if she was pretending, and roared. Her green skin made her more persuasive, as if she were a dragon child. She roared again. Oh, sweetheart, don't, said Frex. And she peed on the floor and sniffed her urine with satisfaction and disgust. Huh? Okay, cute. You're giving me these fun little descriptions of Elphaba as a baby, being like a little baby. What? Why does? How does she know what a dragon looks like, or sounds like, or what a dragon would roar like? Oh, she's so cute. And then the baby pissed on the floor. What do you mean? There's a whole bunch of different examples like this, like sort of sprinkled all throughout the book, where it is just people yapping and yapping and yapping, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then blah blah blah. After a while, Nor came flinging herself into her mother's lap again. Tell me a story, Mamma, she said. Those boys are nasty. Boys are vexing creatures, agreed her mother. Sometimes. I shall tell you the story of when you were born. No, not that, said Nor, yawning. A real story. Tell me about the witch and the fox babies again. Sarima protested, knowing full well that the children considered Auntie Guest a witch, but Nor was stubborn and Sarima relented and told the tale. Elphaba listened. Her father had taught her moral precepts and had lectured her about responsibility. Nanny had gossiped. Nessa Rose had whined, but no one had told stories to her when she was young. She pulled herself forward a little so she could hear over the noise of the crowd. Sarima recited the tale with a little dramatic involvement, but even so, Elphaba felt a twinge when she heard the conclusion. And there the wicked old witch stayed for a good long time. We just have to listen to Elphaba's thoughts that whole time instead of hearing the fun little story about the witch and the fox babies. I would have loved to hear that. I'm supposed to listen to this author of a guy who's supposed to be telling me, supposedly, his reimagined world of The Wizard of Oz, and I don't get to know that story. What's literally so annoying is that not 10 pages later, we get this whole story about reason why Elphaba has been named Elphaba. We get the story of about this saint Aelphaba, who Elphaba has been named after, and we get the whole sort of backstory and legend of Saint Aelphaba and why she's named that. And it's like, why are we given this backstory of Saint Elphaba, but not being given the story about the witch and the baby foxes? Again, I'm not sure if the witch and the baby foxes is supposed to be a story that is from the original book Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum, L. Frank Baum or whatever. If that's supposed to be something that's like an Easter egg for the original book, like those who know, I don't think it's as effective as it's intending to be. If anything, it's just pissing me the fuck off. Okay, there are other parts in this book as well. I think particularly in this chapter, because this is the chapter at least where Elphaba is in Sarima's castle. She's with Sarima in the castle during winter and everything like that. But there'll be times when the narrator is referring to anything that Elphaba has said as Elfie said Elfie. The narrator itself is supposed to be assumed to be like an omniscient narrator. It's not supposed to have a point of view. Why is this omniscient narrator using a nickname for a character? I could understand maybe if we were reading any of the chapters from like Bok's perspective, like the whole chapter itself that is about Bok and his time at Shiz and his feelings and shit like that. I don't even think it could be something that is like argued that it's like third person limited. It's all third person omniscient, where whoever is narrating, whatever is narrating it, it's not a person. So why is this narration saying Elfie? Why is it using a nickname? It should just be saying Elphaba. If anything, it just felt lazy, as if back in 1995 or whenever Greg Maguire was typing it out, he couldn't be bothered to type out Elphaba in Windows 95. So he chose to use the nickname. It didn't make sense, especially for when I like noticed it and I became conscious of it. It was when she was with Sarima in the Winter Mountains. And I'm like, no one here in these scenes are going to be familiar enough with Elphaba to start calling her a nickname. So why is this omniscient narrator fucking calling her a nickname? It pissed me off, okay? No one else is given a nickname, at least like from the narrator's point of view. Only nickname that is like used is Elfie. And we know that Fiero gave her the nickname of Faye. Her dad gave her the nickname of Fabula. If it's her dad talking to her, then sometimes he will say, "Oh, Fabula," or if it's Fiero talking to her, he'll be like, "Oh, I love you, Faye," or whatever. Like, I don't know what they're actually saying, but they address her and it's in quotations. They are addressing that nickname to her. It's only when it seems as if when the author is fucking lazy that he's using Elfie. Elfie said this. Elfie went down the stairs. Blah blah blah. It just feels like he's wanting to save his little fingers typing Elphaba. He doesn't even write friggin' Faye said. He doesn't say Fabula said. So why are you using the nickname here? Why are you using Elfie here as well? Like, no one in the scene. Sarima is not going to be calling her Elfie. I think that the story itself had a really good premise, especially when you're considering the oppression of people. What? No. Oppression of animals, capital A, animals with a capital A. If you're considering that and comparing that to, you know, historical times and, even possibly contemporary times as well, where groups of people in our real life are being like ostracized. I'm sure that if you compared the the plights of the capital A animals where their travel is being limited. At a certain age can only work certain jobs. They can only work on farms. They can no longer work in higher education. I'm sure that that rings a bell to fucking, I don't know, Holocaust time Germany when that started. I don't know enough about history. Don't come for me. I'm so sorry. The bricks are there. The story bricks are there, regardless of like the fact that some of the themes and the things that he points to are grotesque. Like, I can read a grotesque story if it's well written and if there's a point to it. I feel like this man possibly relied a little too much on the world of the Wizard of Oz and relied too much on assuming that the reader knows the Wizard of Oz and the world of Oz, that he didn't go into any sort of further detail to build the world. He just placed the story in there and assumed that we knew everything. But he's framing this as a retelling of the Wizard of Oz itself and retelling of the story of Glinda and Elphaba, but he's not doing the work, he's not putting in the work to then build that world for us or like describing that world for us. Like, for example, with the ending, how it just feels so rushed towards the end. It's as if he is just banking on the fact that we know the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie. You guys know that one, right? So I don't need to tell you about it in my book. I could just skip to the ending, right? And then you guys can buy my next book so you can find out more, right? Like, I just feel like it's unearned. I think also whenever the characters are in like the city of Oz, whenever they are in locations that we know, the city of Oz, when Elphaba is in Munchkinland, when Elphaba is at Sarima's castle in the mountains. Obviously, Munchkinland is where the house falls in the movie. We know that land. It's, beautiful and colorful, full of flowers, and there's little Munchkin people and stuff like that. We know the city of Oz from the movie. It's beautiful and green and it's opulent. We know that at the end of the movie, where the witch gets the water thrown on her, it's like a dungeony cave, gross stone built a fucking castle. I know that that's what those locations look like because I have seen the movie. If I had read the book, I would not have a proper grasp of what those locations are supposed to look like because he doesn't go into any sort of effort. It pisses me off in particular about not describing the opulence of the city of Oz because you are trying to write to me a story. You're trying to portray a story to me about inequity between animals with a capital A and people, and how people are being subjugated now that there is the ruling Wizard of Oz and stuff like that. He's overthrown the ruling Ozma regent, whoever, to put himself in power. And you're not showing me how opulent this capital city is to then demonstrate that, they're wanting to concentrate the wealth just at this one place. Like, I don't know. They just felt lazy. Felt like this author was pissing in my fucking face. Like, yeah, you should know the Wizard of Oz, but also fuck you if you know the Wizard of Oz. I'm not giving you any more descriptions. I am sick of pretending that a retelling of a story is supposed to have any more literary weight than what it really is. It's fan fiction. Just call it fan fiction. Wicked is fan fiction. You guys won't call it fan fiction because you're pussies, because you don't want to be associated with 14-year-old girls writing about One Direction or My Chemical Romance and Harry Potter. But that's what it is. That's what you wrote about. Thankfully, it wasn't the first book that I finished in 2025. But like, if it weren't for my book club, if it weren't for my friends, I would have DNF'd this book so fucking soon. It would have been the first book that I DNF'd. And frankly, now it's made me a little bit scared to read any of the other books that I wanted to read in 2025 because this was so disappointing. What if every other book that I've chosen to read this year is just as disappointing? Oh my god, too scary to think about. You are welcome to disagree with me. But again, I want you to give me reasons why you disagree with me. Please convince me otherwise. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to. Thank you for spending your time with me. The whole thing that Kristen Chenoweth says, that when Glinda has a really high pitched voice, is when she's being the most inauthentic. I really